Welcome back to What Would You Ask podcast. My next guest, she had nothing to do, so she decided to let's go to 4 or 5 continents. Let's go to 10 or 12 countries, and let's and by the way, not have anything with us except a passport. No phone, no money, no nothing. We're just going to go and check it out, see what happens. And by the way, I'm going to meet up with a guy that I don't even know. He's going to go with me. And that's kind of it. Like, I think the interview's over after that. Season 29. Her and her partner, Logan, just knocked it out of the park, in my opinion. Third place. Look, if you're in top 5 of Amazing Race, it's a winner. I mean, it's a winner. I know it's not the winner, but come on. Do you see what these people have to do? I'd be bailing early going, I just got to have a steak. I'm sorry. A glass of wine. Chill out. Can't be running around, especially worrying about the cameraman and the sound guy. Although I'm sure they're not behind you. They heard these guys are in amazing shape. Anyway, London Kaye, welcome to What Would You Ask podcast. Glad you're here.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
So tell us a little bit about the inspiration of The Amazing Race. Where did that come into your view?
I loved The Amazing Race, just in general. I've always been a fan. I've seen every season, even the family one. And I just loved it. All Stars always were my favorite. So I actually just coincidentally met the host at a sushi restaurant one day. And my dad poked up out of the booth because I was like, that's Phil from Amazing Race. And he poked up trying to embarrass me and was like, hey, Phil. And Phil, being just so kind, came over and had a little banter with us. And a couple weeks later, I got an email saying we're doing a season with individual casting. Would you like to submit a video? And I just think the stars aligned.
That's so cool. That really is cool. It's cool to hear that Phil's that way because he's a little bit, I don't know. I mean, I watched the show and I've watched a ton for this series, but yeah, I'm glad to hear that he's human too, because we get this whole different look of him, right? And it's kind of secretive because we see you guys chasing everywhere in cabs and trains and buses and subways and planes and in, what do you call them? Travel agencies and stuff. But Phil just appears standing at the end, he's like, oh, you know what I mean? First he was in New York City and now he's in, I don't know, Fiji. Anyway.
Exactly.
So you're a big fan, you get that going. How long is it, the meeting with Phil and then finding out, going through the application audition, I should say, process? What is that, a year away, 2 years away? Tell us a little bit about that.
I remember it was cold day in New York. I want to say late January, early February is when I got the call of hey, make a video. There's potential. So then the whole submission process, we left for The Amazing Race in June, right at the beginning of June. So it was about 6 months, 5 or 6 months to go through the whole process. And I got to come to LA once where, you have to sit in front of everyone and they teach you an elevator pitch on yourself. You have to go into this room and I'm sure you know this from talking to other people, but just filled with all these very intimidating CBS executives and just be hey, I'm London and I do this and this and this and I'm amazing. And that's kind of hard to get used to. But after that process, I came back to New York, wait. And then finally got the official green light and I just jumped for joy.
That's so cool. I want to sprinkle in some questions from our listeners and our viewers. And Alyssa from Boston, Massachusetts wants to know, is there any way to prepare for The Amazing Race?
I would say definitely. If you don't prepare, maybe it's running a marathon off a couch. I'm sure you could do it, but you may not do it very well. So, what I did to prepare that ended up helping really well was research what was going to go in my bag. I made sure that I had only what I needed, 1 pair of shoes, no straightening iron. There was nothing extra in my bag. I also had a whole pocket for yarn, which also took up a lot of space. So I would say the lighter the bag, the better for sure, because you are running around with it all the time. The other thing I did to prepare is I ran. I trained for a 10K because I had never done anything like that, which was really helpful. And I did a bit of CrossFit, which I hated. And I think honestly, it was bad for me. But what I should have done is ditched my iPhone in a pool for like 2 months before and learned how to use a map, because the demise of our existence, which we still came in third, so it wasn't that bad, but was directions every time.
Yeah, that's interesting. I had a conversation, Bates Battaglia, who was the winner with his brother Anthony in season 2022, maybe. He was a hockey player from Raleigh, North Carolina, played for the Hurricanes. I asked him the same question, and I found his answer very interesting. He said, one of the things that he did to prepare was read for comprehension. Like him and Anthony made a commitment. Anything that we get and we open and we read, we have to read it twice. We have to. And he said it was so helpful to them because it's one right turn or one missed turn that can put you out of the game. And I found that really interesting.
That's some really good advice. And since they won,
yeah.
I think everyone should take it.
Yeah. Let me see. I got another question for you. In all of the countries, we're getting right into it now. In all the countries that you visited, was there one that you thought I would love to return to? Oh, I get it. Didn't read that
it's
well.
Hard to even pick one, right?
Yeah.
Everywhere I feel like it would be so amazing to go back to, like with the show, the experiences that you get to do. Like I think about South Korea, and we had to make kimchi.
Right.
And the experience though, like caught in this hustle and bustle of running the race, you walk into this like serene garden where there's musicians playing like light string instruments, and like you're learning to make kimchi from like these women who've been doing it their whole life. And it was just like moments like that are so special that if I was traveling myself, I never would have done that. I wouldn't have gone and made kimchi by with a small group. So like things like that I'm really grateful for, but I feel like every country almost I have to go back to, because the experience you have traveling with friends or for fun or even for work is so different. But if I was to pick one, I would love to go back to Tanzania and specifically Zanzibar. I would love to climb Mount Kilimanjaro.
That's
and we didn't do that on the race. So that's definitely a place I'd like to go back to. But Zanzibar, the people were just so happy. Like driving around, like when you got in the cab, they were smiling from ear to ear. They honked not to be like mean. They honked to pretty much say hello. So you're driving down the street, hearing these honks, which aren't scary. They're actually quite delightful. And just like, I don't know, it was really great spirit in the air. And just seeing how people live everyday life so differently than we do here really puts things in perspective.
So London, I'm a little bit confused. You mean the people in New York City aren't beeping to say hello? I thought, because I was going to get outside today and just start waving to people that honk at me.
No, not today. Not today.
Maybe that's a goal for all of us to try to happen. Transform New York City into honking to say hello. That would be fantastic.
Yes. Wow.
Because I also think they tell me I'm number one sometimes when they honk too, when they stick their finger up. Wait, it's not that right finger. Anyway, let's jump back a little bit because we got right into it with that question. And I want to hear about the favorite tasks and what mistakes you made and what things you would change. Not mistakes, but, things you might look back and change.
So many mistakes.
Yeah, I know. But who doesn't? I mean, I was interviewing, I mentioned Bates, but he was like, the first like couple of challenges, he said, we didn't even have our head screwed on straight. It was like we were behind. We didn't know what we're doing. He said, just the whole process, you just got to learn it on the fly. And it was like, and then finally we settled down but he said it was like a whirlwind at first. You guys are, I forgot where you are. I just picture you guys being out. Are you in LA when you started? Was that?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Cause I remember you running through that tunnel and Jeff tells you Phil tells you to take off. You get to pick cause you were, you finished going to find the luggage. By the way, and I forgot their names, but the big lady and the army lady, the two, I forgot their couple's names, but the team's name, but they were so funny right off the bat. They're yelling at each other. No, I followed you first. And it was like, it's a go with those two right away. And then they end up team together. But you turned to Logan and said, I need some muscle. I'm taking Logan. Like and I think in some of your pre-stuff, he fit the T of who you wanted to go. You said somebody that was smart, kind, strong, like you had, and he was the guy, right?
Yeah. I mean, you aren't allowed to talk to anybody, but before you kind of can see people as you're getting ready, we didn't know we were going to pick our partners, but like, there were definitely people that I was like, okay, he would be good. I did want a guy for strength. Now looking back on it, I don't think that would have been as important to me. Not that I would have never picked a different partner than Logan, but just like, I feel like you can get through this race without much muscle, which I didn't realize. And yeah, he seemed nice. I couldn't believe he was still left, honestly, because he is so strong. I thought he was going to be one to go sooner. So I did feel lucky getting to pick him.
What did you think in looking back? Or did you guys, the right pick? It sounds like you felt like you made the right pick, right?
Yeah, we were definitely he was the right pick for me because we were both very we get along with people easily. So we were able to get along with the entire cast. Even sometimes like a certain group would be sitting in one room and another group would be sitting in the other room. Like Logan and I would split and one of us would take one room and one would take the other. So we would always be part of every conversation, always, just because everybody was fine with talking to us. We didn't have any enemies.
So let me just remind everyone, you placed third in this, but as you know, I have a crack staff of researchers, 2 local college kids who are doing it part-time. They went out and found this bit of information, and I don't even know where, sorry, did I wake you up? I'm talking to guys on the screen here. Yeah. Do we know where we found the quote about my friend London and her friend Logan? You don't have to check. That'll take an hour. Here's the quote. One of the most invisible teams in the history of the race. You can't say that about Logan and London. How could you say a Lolo? You can't say that. And you had that name, by the way, like in the first hour. You're in the first cab. You're like Lolo. And I'm like, hey, that's pretty smart. I would have thought about that like 30 days later. Well, I don't get it. And it said something about, no drama, no, you kind of got along with everybody, kind of like what you're saying. You were just nothing that was, cameras, take a look at what they're doing kind of thing. Tell us, how is that representative of who you guys were? That's a better question.
Well, we definitely weren't invisible in my eyes. But when you watch the show back, it's like we never came in first. We never came in last.
That's true.
We never had any drama between the two of us. And it's not that we weren't like fun and funny and enjoying ourselves. It's just literally Team Fun was also on our season. And there were just other people with such extreme personalities that I think just like nice, drama-free isn't really gonna cut it. But I'm happy with it. Like not many people can go on a reality show and come off being like, okay, that's everything they showed is me. And I don't regret anything I said. And I'd rather not be in the show than do something so nasty that takes over airtime. So agreed. I was happy that we were able to be ourselves. And if that doesn't get the greatest cut, what can I say?
Lots of questions around you and Logan, being an item, not being an item. Are you still in contact today? Can you sum that up for us?
Sure. On the show, I mean, obviously he's a very handsome gentleman, but being put in this situation where you're like doing so many things, as much as I'd like to think that my dating life was on the forefront, it wasn't, which $1 million was. But yeah, he ended up he dated Sarah from the show after the season ended. And they were just so cute together. And we're still in touch. It's like a brother-sister sort of relationship. Like we can reach out to each other about anything at any time and we'll be there for one another. So he's awesome. Shout out to Logan for sure.
That's cool. Awesome. Tell us a little bit about the things you liked doing and the things that weren't so great about being on Amazing Race. I don't know how else to say that, but I'm trying to consume all of the questions that we get into kind of a summary for you. And there are questions about, specific events and challenges and things that you have to do and tasks. And then it's, we hear about the sound person and the camera person. You're making sure you buy tickets for them, fitting them in the cab and all. Tell us a little bit about what you enjoyed and what was challenging for you.
Well, I hate to start with the negative, but it's the one that I thought of. So what I absolutely hated was airport situations, because you don't have any control a lot of times over which line's going to move faster or when flights are going to book up. And it caused me a lot of anxiety, even just like being on the airplane and waiting and not knowing what task you're going to get once you arrive. And to add to that, once you arrive at an airport, you don't know what order everyone's going to hop into the cab. So the whole travel thing is very stressful. And I didn't like that, because I don't really like pushing ahead of people. The other thing with travel that's quite challenging is with the sound guys and the camera guy. Like Logan and I would be fine with sitting in a front row with middle seats. That's cool with us. But you do have to think about, there's 4 people. So are your camera guy and your sound guy also going to be cool with a 12-hour flight sitting in a middle seat when they could have a whole row in the back? I don't know. So it's a lot of just like figuring that stuff out. So that was very challenging.
How important is it? And it seems to me that there's always a first flight and a second flight on every, you know what I mean? And it has to be that way, right? Because it keeps the hustle up. Is there a huge advantage though? Because we've seen people that have been in that second flight multiple times and win actually. And, so is it that much of a rush for you guys as we think it might be? You know what I mean?
I think it's a bigger rush than
Oh, really?
Oh, cool. My gosh. Just watching the season that's on now, I'm like, oh my gosh. People just thought it just, it's a lot of,
good point.
So, sorry, I forgot the first part of the question because I got so overly anxious. But
no, you got it. It's just about the flights, is about being on that first plane is critical.
Oh, right.
Right.
I think, yes. And I think it comes down to, once you land, there are so many factors, especially when it comes to navigation. If you take a wrong turn and get lost for 2 hours, that could be the flight for sure. So sometimes they aren't separated out too much, is what I've noticed.
How about your favorite part of being part of the Amazing Race? What's the best part of it?
Looking back on it, it's really cool that we didn't have any technology for a whole month. I don't know if we'll ever get to experience that again. I mean, literally in front of me, I have 2 iPhones, which is ridiculous. So I just think like being away, and even in the hotel rooms, they take your phone out. So you can't like sneakily call home or anything. So just to be cut off from all that, it was really interesting coming back. They give you your phone back. I had to take a couple deep breaths before powering it on. But then you realize nothing really changed. And that was cool.
Tell us about the final leg, Chicago Speedway Challenge. Tell us a little bit about your impressions. We saw it all on TV and see it played out. Give us the real life experience as you went through that.
Well, it didn't go exactly as I would have liked to have.
Got it.
Right from the get-go, we had trouble with our cab. We are so excited to be back in the US and have like a cab driver with like an iPhone. And not to hate on this at all, but he had a older iPhone that was just running at the speed of molasses. So we had trouble finding where we were going initially, which really set us off poorly. But then once we got to the Speedway, it was so fun. Like, first of all, that was never a dream of mine, to be in a racetrack. Also, getting to play like in South Korea video games was never on my bucket list, but I'm so happy I did that.
Oh, that's cool.
That was so cool. But I actually Logan was the driver because he is much better at driving stick shift. And I was the one that had to change the tire. And it was so hard. But now, because of going through it, it took me a while, but I did do it. But going through that process, I can now change a tire, which is pretty sweet. But Joey definitely was helpful. he helped me with like the tool for a second, which like made it all click. But it was really just directions at the beginning that set us off in third. And then the rest of the thing was kind of botched.
So Alex from Jupiter, Florida.
So
I'm sorry, say that again.
Oh, I thought about it so many times. What we like, you can see the helicopter flying over where you have to go.
Right.
We didn't even think about it. We saw a helicopter and weren't like, oh, that's probably where we need to go. It's kind of close to where we're supposed to go anyways. Like silly things like that. Anyway.
Is it a more of a mental game than it is physical, or is it just both? Like we think it's both, right? I mean, people watching the show, it's got to be a mental, you're always thinking, you have to be thinking, then you have your individual things you have to think about at the moment. And then you leave that and you got to think again back in the race. Is it, but it looks, physically draining as well.
It's both. And I think sometimes when you're caught up in the mix of it all, you don't even realize that you need to be switching your brain back and forth between focusing and then being athletic. I loved the athletic challenges. Like my favorite one was getting to climb up the thing in Norway.
Oh yeah.
It was like this big bonfire that they set on fire a month after. So cool. So I liked the physical challenges more than the mental challenges. And I don't think Logan and I realized that we definitely were more of a physical team. We would always tend to pick like the artsy things or like the more, I don't know, mental stuff, I feel like at the beginning, and then have to switch. And then, so yeah, it's definitely a mix of both.
Alex from Jupiter, Florida wants to know any behind the scenes anecdotal or memorable moments that, weren't captured on camera?
It was really fun in Zanzibar. We all checked in right around sunset. Everybody was all checked in. And this was one of the few moments that the cast was able to talk without cameramen and stuff. And Logan and I had saved up quite a bit of money. I was going to say, you could have a steak and wine. You would just have to save up your money on the race to then treat yourself. But we had saved up quite a bit of money. So we bought everybody a beer, like a local beer at the hotel. And we all sat outside and just watched the sunset. And it was a really, really cool, like bonding experience to get to do that. And it was really fun. Also, we would always try to like get a beer of the country we're in, like a local beer from there. And that was just a fun little thing Logan and I did all around the world. That's
pretty neat. How did you feel the editing? Did the editing of the show represent you and Logan and the team, and was it right on?
Yeah, I think so. I think if anything on these shows, like watching it with everybody on our cast, they take your personality and perhaps in some cases they'll like, boost it up a little bit, but everybody is pretty much, what you see on TV, I'd say. Some people will not be happy with me saying that.
One more question before I talk to you a little bit about crochet art, because in my stuff, my literature, I got into your Instagram and not into your, like I hacked it. I mean, I got into it, and
I did get an unusual login from Australia recently. Is that you?
Gosh.
Hold on, I'm gonna just turn this on because my lighting's all funky.
So let me ask the question, then we'll talk about your crochet art. Is there anything about you that being on The Amazing Race revealed?
One thing when I got back is like the thing that I took away was that you can do anything. Like, because I was forced to do things, I had to ultimately do them. And I just remember getting back and using that mentality a lot for things I was doing. I remember right away just like going on a run and I was like, no, you can run around the block one more time. But really, I think it translates to anything at all. If you put your mind to something, you will accomplish it, which was pretty amazing to get to experience.
That's cool. That's really cool. So as I was mentioning, I was hacking into your Instagram and I saw like the coolest, I don't even know what crochet is. I have to be honest with you. I know what yarn, I mean, I know what it is, but like, I never thought that somebody would be doing street art or, visual, massive, whatever they're called, picturesque, colorful, really unique what do you call it? I was going to say,
Oh,
picture stuff with crochet. And I got to see, I told you off air that, it looked like hand gel with the drops. There was a whole Sir Richard Branson, I should be correct, thing. There was Modern Family was another thing. There was a Kobe it was really cool stuff. And I was thinking to myself, number one, I would never have the patience to do that. Number two is like, why crochet? Isn't it like, I said to you, it looks like the end result is unbelievable. So it's definitely worth the time. But when you go in the first loop, I would be like, all right, there's no way. Cause I'm looking at the mock-up, and the mock-up is 6 foot by 8 feet. And I have, 3 inches. I just started. Tell me, why did you decide to go with crochet or go with yarn or whatever?
Well, I started crocheting when I was 13, and I would always just make scarves for like friends and girls at my dance studio. And after college, I got a job working at the Apple store. And a couple years in, I was like, all right, I want to do more than just sell computers. Loved working there, but wanted something a bit more creative. And a lady came in with a really crazy crocheted bag. And I had never known that you could do anything unconventional with yarn. I always thought you could just make scarves or a sweater. So after she left the store that night, I Googled her name. And through that search result, I stumbled upon something called yarn bombing. And yarn bombing is where you take a piece of knit or crocheted fabric and wrap it around something in a public space, like a tree or a fire hydrant, a stop sign pole, whatever it may be. So the very next day, I went outside of my apartment in Brooklyn and wrapped a tree in a scarf I'd made. And I just I thought it was the coolest thing. But I also thought it'd come down and nothing really would come of it. But I put a little tag on it so people could contact me. And within the first week, a lady reached out saying her and her granddaughter stop at the tree every day and it just makes their morning. And I was like, I have to do more. So I had my full-time job working at Apple. And just for fun, I started doing street art in New York City, putting out crocheted art. At first, I did it every day for 50 days. And then from there, I was able to finally go part-time at Apple and quit working there because I do work for different brands and big collaborations, like for Modern Family, for Kelly Clarkson, for Disney, doing all crocheted craziness. But I also do street art for fun still.
I mean, it's actually.
Did that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. It's the coolest. I mean, I'm really blown away by it. I have to tell you. I've seen street art with paint and stuff, and I'm not minimizing that at all, but because there's definitely skilled people that do that as well. But you guys have to go to londonkay.com. Number one, I went and checked that out too. And I saw a red pair of shoes that were made, it's cool. I mean, I don't know how else to say it. It's a new world for me. It's like opening new doors. I might start crocheting now. But then there's go ahead.
Crochet. The thing about crochet that's I think different than the painted murals we're used to seeing is that crochet adds this touch of nostalgia. Everybody has a connection to yarn, whether it's from a sweater that was passed down from a grandmother or a blanket that's been in the family for generations. So
one that hung over the back of the couch forever. Because my grandmother made it. It's falling apart, holes in it. Your grandmother made that 50 years ago. You can leave that right there. Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, Mom, but I don't put it on me because when it's cold in here, because it doesn't do anything. The other thing that was really cool was there's a water pipe out of the ground, and it's got the crochet. I mean, it's just really cool. Looking at the stuff is captivating. I don't know how else to say it.
Are people going to see this video?
Yes, they're going to see the video.
I'll grab the water.
No, they're just going to hear me describe it forever. Well, the people on the podcast that just listen in the car are obviously not going to see it, but on the YouTube channel.
There you go.
There you go. The one I have is from her website. It's more colorful, but that one's really cool.
This pipe was outside of my house, and for a whole year, about every month, I'd have to switch it out because it did get kind of gross, this one. So I got a bit creative. So there would be a new colorful one. One time, one had a whale tail coming out of it. One was a snake slithering out. It was pretty fun.
And there's these high heels that somebody's actually wearing that are crochet around. It's just, I mean, this, you guys got to check it out.
Probably me.
Yeah. Well, we see there's one with you jumping in front of the I Exist one and
Oh yes.
XOXO, or at least she looks just like you. No, it's really cool stuff. And then obviously you're on social media, Made by London, right? We
Yes,
can find you
indeed.
there. There it is right there. So go check her out. Awesome stuff. I'm telling you, I'm not, keeping my wife will tell you, keeping my attention is, it's got to be something. And I went through the whole website and I told you, I hacked in my way to Instagram.
I'm
how long that
flattered.
took me?
I really am. That's really awesome.
London, thank you so much for joining us and sharing your amazing race story and also your amazing mission in this crochet world. I love it. I think it's awesome.
Thank you. Thank you so much. This was fun.
We'll be back with more What Would You Ask podcast in a second.